for horror movie fans, with over 40 new horror films released in 2022. Of course, not all of them are worth watching, so we've selected 10 great horror movies with fresh new stories and lots of jump scares, fun, and entertainment to give you a refined list. So watch the entire video to avoid missing any movie on the list. Now let's start the video. Number 10. Terrifier 2. It is a 2022 horror slasher film directed by Damien Leone. It is a sequel to Terrifier 2016 movie. The film opens 1 year following the incidents of the first film, with a dark force reviving a merciless Art the Clown. The major plot revolves around Sienna and her brother Jonathan as they talk to their mother about their Thanksgiving preparations, while Sienna and her mother are both frightened at the idea of Jonathan dressing as Art the Clown. However, the carnage starts when Art the Clown pursues both siblings, and things become interesting when Jonathan discovers their father's journal, which contains disturbing images of Art and his kills. The two siblings' mysterious bond with the Art leads to terrifying close calls for both of them. With a supernatural backstory that progressively explores Art's gruesome mysteries, the film pushes the limits of spine-chilling horror, so if you don't like horror films with a lot of gore and kills, I suggest you skip this one. And the film has a 6.3 rating on IMDb and an 80% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 9. Hatching. It is a 2022 psychological body horror film directed by Hannah Bergholm. The story follows Tinja, a teenage athlete who is driven by a desire to impress her mother, who is fixated on projecting their ideal family to the public via her well-read social media posts. However, nothing is sufficient for her mother, while Tinja, on the other hand, gradually gives in to the crushing weight of demands and perfection, until one day she unintentionally discovers a strange egg in the neighboring woods. From that point on, things change, as Tinja secretly raises the egg at home, until she sheds a tear that appears to trigger an extraordinary mutation of the egg. The mayhem starts when Tinja's personal parental emotions become the target of the newly born entity, which brings consequences that soon grow frighteningly twisted. The movie alternates between a bloody gore-filled horror adventure and a thought-provoking criticism of parenting and family traditions, and it grows darker as it moves toward a scarier climax. And the movie has a 6.2 rating on IMDb and a 62% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 8. Salem. It is a horror thriller film directed by Jean-Luc Hergoulet. The story centers on the notorious soldiers Chaka, Rafa, and Minuit, also known as the Bangui Hyenas, who must hide their bags full of gold loot and remain undetected long enough to execute their escape. However, when they seek shelter in the Salem, they make an effort to mix in with the townspeople, but problems emerge when one of the people identifies them and wishes to join their gang in order to share in their loot. Meanwhile in the town, due to a strange supernatural event, some residents have gone missing, while others have had their physical parts twisted. However, Chaka is the one who is keeping the most sinister mystery among all of them. Overall, it's a folklore horror tale that explores unique cultural paranormals, with crime drama as a subplot that are uncommon in typical horror movies. It is a must-see on this list. And the film has a 6.3 rating on IMDb and a 68% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 7. Barbarian. It is a 2022 horror mystery film directed by Zach Cregger. The story revolves around a woman named Tess who, upon arriving in Detroit for an interview, learns that the rental home she had reserved had been accidentally double-booked and that a complete stranger is already living there. Despite feeling uncomfortable spending the night with a mysterious man, she decides to remain because she is anxious to attend the interview. When Tess discovers a secret underground that takes her far below the house, where she finds a hidden stairway that goes to a creepy room with blood on the walls. Now terrified and worried, she tries to go back but is caught and pursued by a terrible entity that has been residing there for years. You may not like the way the story ends, but the plot twist keeps you on your feet, and the suspense, mystery, and horror this film generates are definitely worth experiencing. And the film has a 7.1 rating on IMDb and a 71% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 6. Orphan. First Kill. It is a 2022 horror slasher film directed by William Brent Bell. It is a prequel to the 2009 film Orphan. The story centers on Lena Klammer, who looks to be a cute girl but is actually a 31-year-old psychopath who suffers from a rare biological condition that allows her to resemble a 9-year-old girl. She escapes from a psychiatric hospital and travels to America, disguised as Esther, a long-missing child, and easily invades Esther's rich family. However, as her unusual actions cause many people to question if she is truly Esther, the situation turns against her, and she is pitted against Esther's mother, who realizes her mystery and is willing to take any measure to defend her family. While the first film is scarier and more focused on terror, this sequel falls short. But despite its faults, the revelation in the middle of the film is the strongest element. And the movie has a 5.9 rating on IMDb and a 77% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 5. Pearl. It is a 2022 horror slasher film that serves as a prequel to the X film. You probably already know what this movie is about if you've seen X. For now, have a look at this quick review to decide whether it's worth checking out this movie or not. The story of the film centers on Pearl, a lovely young girl who is kept captive on the family's rural farm and made to look after her sick father while being forcefully and intolerably commanded by her strict mother. However, Pearl's desire to live a beautiful life and become a great dancer causes her ambitions, emotions, and pressures to collide, driving her to carry out horrifying acts. Also, as it focuses more on Pearl's unsettling psychological horror journey, the film offers a little less violence and horror than X, but remember that it is still a slasher. And the film has a 7 rating on IMDb and an 82% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 4. You Won't Be Alone. It is a 2022 horror thriller film directed by Goran Stolevsky. The film takes place in the 19th century and tells the story of Navina, a teenage girl who is abducted and later turned into a witch by the immortal demon Maria. After turning into a witch, she grew increasingly concerned about what it was like to survive as a normal person. As a result, she mistakenly murders an innocent woman, Vasilika, before taking her form and living in her body. However, matters worsen when, in a moment of rage, she murders Vasilika's violent husband and flees while changing into both animal and human bodies. Years later, Navina is enjoying life with her husband and their child, but their joy is short-lived as Maria arrives to take her baby away. The story unfolds slowly, which may not appeal to every horror movie fan. While there are times when it resembles a gloomy fairy tale, other times it is just raw horror drama that gives you chills. It is interesting and unique, add it to your watch list, you won't regret it. And the film has a 6.3 rating on IMDb and a 68% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 3. The Black Phone. It is a 2022 supernatural horror film directed by Scott Derrickson. The film is set in 1978 in a tiny town where there have been numerous abductions of young kids, while the main character of the story is 13-year-old Finney Shaw, who is abducted by a psychotic killer and held prisoner in a dark, soundproof dungeon. Meanwhile, it appears that Finney has little hope of surviving. He starts to plan his breakout, but as soon as an unplugged hanging telephone in his room starts to ring, he realizes that he can listen to the voices of the murderer's dead victims who are trying to help him by guiding him on how to avoid facing the very same tragedy as they all did. This movie is tense and frightening for the most time, but when it combines ideas of otherworldly horror into its unsettling narrative, it gives a fresh take on horror movies. In simple terms, it's one of the most excellent horror films made in recent times. And the movie has a 6.9 rating on IMDb and an 88% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 2. Nope. It is a neo-Western sci-fi horror film centering on two siblings, O.J. and Emerald Haywood, who claim the family estate after their father's suspicious death. The horror factor begins with weird things being dropped from the sky, the same event that led to their father's passing. After that, the siblings experience extraordinary happenings when their horses react to cryptic forces. But when they witness a huge alien-like vessel cruising over the house and collecting humans against their will and murdering them in the most awful manners, they decide to risk their lives to try to record the event on camera. The most important aspect of this film is the intensity and fear it creates around its mystery, which keeps your imagination running constantly when you first notice the object in the cloud. It is not the best, but it is the most original horror film on this list. And the movie has a 6.9 rating on IMDb and a 69% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 1. Smile. Seriously, who would have guessed that smiling could evolve into something so terrifying? The story is about the smile curse, which claims that when the time comes, if the individual who holds the curse kills himself in the presence of another person while smiling, and another normal person witnesses a victim of the curse murdering himself, they essentially turn into the next target. The main character is psychiatrist Dr. Rose Cotter, whose patient murders himself while smiling. Following the incident, Rose experiences a string of hauntings that make her believe she is being pursued by a malicious supernatural force. And what terrifies her the most is that she sees smiles everywhere she goes. The plot of the film develops as Joel, a police officer, joins Rose in her quest to learn more about the monster and discover a method to break the curse. This movie presents a terrifying mythology that is unlike anything we have ever seen before, so do not miss this one. And the movie has a 6.6 rating on IMDb and a 77% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. That's it for today. Thank you for watching this video. And do subscribe our channel to see more videos related to movies and series suggestions.